Okay, first of all, the tradition of making images, the tradition of making tankas and paintings and statues and representations of the enlightened being, because some religions totally go for that, concentrate on that. It's a very in-depth practice. It's been going on for thousands of years, and it gives a lot of people courage and a lot of inspiration. And, it's even a beautiful artwork. And in some faiths, they totally don't accept any type of holy images. And both are valid because it's the needs of the people. Some people prefer to concentrate on something very abstract and powerful, and they have that ability to do that. Some people would prefer to concentrate on something powerful and non-abstract, something that's tangible. So the bottom line is to hook up and to make a connection with something that is above the ordinary, that is beyond us, that is divine, if I may use that word. And it's us trying to hook up with the divine and trying to get some of that divinity within us. Whether you pray to a nondescript, intangible, all-powerful force, or you pray to something where you solicit or propitiate something that is tangible, that has got a structured form and symbology. The purpose of both of that is to become divine, to become closer to divinity. So prayer actually is to become divine. So if we sit and fold our hands and we pray to a nondescript, all-powerful being and vice versa, the point of the prayer is this, is to become divine. Become divine as in you can manifest food where there's no food, you can raise the dead. No, not that kind of divinity. The divinity of human qualities that improve with time. So if you look at yourself, and you examine yourself, and you look at yourself, and then you've been praying and making offerings and mantras, whatever, for a certain amount of time, and you don't see anything divine happening in you, you can question, does the divine really exist? Or is there's divinity in me to be tapped? Or am I doing something wrong? Or there is divinity to be tapped, and there is something divine to propitiate, yet I'm not running the extra mile to get it done. So throughout time, people have a mistaken view that if they actually pray, do rituals, bathing the Buddha, or offering things onto a holy object, or helping a church or a temple, whatever, they feel that's divine. But what I want to reiterate here is you are making offerings to the divine in hopes that you can become closer to the divine. But that is actually not the act that divinity is looking for. That's definitely not the act. How do you know that? Because people who only do those acts, make offerings, chant, recite, meditate, read, they go to the church, whatever. After 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you don't see much of a difference in them. In fact, some people actually degenerate. So some people have been, let's go now to Dharma. Some people have been in Dharma for quite a long time. You know, they claim to be Buddhist for quite a long time. You see very little transformation, no change. Some even downwards. Why is that? Is it because the divine does not exist? Is it that we don't have any divinity that cannot be? It cannot be because it is a human quality to have divinity. I'll give you a clear, logical example to check whether you have divinity within you. And that is, if you hear the plight of someone in huge difficulty, example, the Bosnians, and you hear people being killed, kids being killed and sold into slavery and prostitution, and mothers who are pregnant getting themselves sliced, and women being raped, and that rape is not just sexual gratification, it's more about raping their identity, that once they're raped, they're dirty, they're sullied, and they can't get married again, to ruin them. When you hear things like that, how do you feel? Do you winch? Do you feel uncomfortable? Do you feel not nice? Do you feel like, oh my God, what can I do? You see, how you feel is that you do feel. When you do feel, that shows you have divinity within you. How much you feel is how much divinity. And afterwards, what you do about that is to show how much you put your divinity into action. So if you don't do anything, you don't make a devotion, you don't make a prayer, you don't offer incense, maybe you don't send donations to them, whatever. If you don't do any of that, you can see that your divinity is there, it is existent, but it's dormant. It's not active. Why? Because if it's something for ourselves to spend money, to make an effort, to do something, we will go all the way. For our self-gratification, body, speech, and mind's gratification, we will go all the way. We'll exhaust ourselves. We can stay on hours, year after year after year. We can do that to gratify ourselves, to take care of ourselves. But in the end, no matter how much we chase after ourselves to gratify ourselves, we come to a rest and say, and look back and say, but I'm not gratified. And whatever I put my energy toward has blown away in the wind. And in fact, all the effort we put in, we feel even more depressed. You know why? Because there is no result. There's not the result that we want. And yet we'll go through all these kind of delineations. And we'll go this way, that way, this way. We'll spend all our time, all our energy, all our knowledge. And all of us are very good in some things. All of us in this room. All of us are very good in some things. Excellent. That other people cannot. Why? Because we have put the time toward it. Because we feel that doing that will gratify, will bring us happiness. But in fact, the more we do it, it takes us away. And we need to really realize that, not as a scolding, not as a put down, not as we're bad, but as a realization because we're intelligent. So pursuing after only self-gratifying pursuits and ignoring everything else that is considered holy to our culture. I'm not talking about Buddhism. In some cultures, it's parental care. In some cultures, it's doing community work. In some cultures, it's meditation. I mean, whatever your culture, your part of the world, your part of samsara is, whatever that is, and you're supposed to do, when you don't do when you self-gratify at the expense of that, then that's where you suppress the divine. That's where the divine goes down. So if you have an arrogance or pride about something and you don't want to share it, or you don't want to learn, you don't want to subjugate yourself into it, you don't want to go under and learn, you're subduing your divine. Why? It is divine to learn. It is divine to improve. But if your ego gets caught, your shame, your face gets caught, it suppresses your divine. It is divine to be alert and awake, and to be alert and awake to the people's needs around you. Whatever people need, whatever people want, whatever we can do to help and relieve them of their sufferings around them. And we do it, and we're aware. Or we can't do it, we're aware and we plan to do it, that is divine. Whereas if we're not alert and aware, and we leave the burden for other people, you suppress the divine. Why? When you burden other people, when you damage other people, directly, indirectly, purposely, or without knowing, you suppress the divine. Divinity or divine cannot damage. Cannot damage in any way. So when we go after self-gratification year after year after year, at the expense of the development of our divinity, that's the key here. When we go after self-gratification at the expense of the development of our divinity, the discovery of our divinity, then it is not good. Self-gratification is not bad. It's the amount, how much, and results. Example, some of our self-gratification can result in benefit. Maybe some people are extremely interested in electronics. Maybe someone's very extremely interested in art. Maybe someone loves to paint and they spend the last 10 years just locked up in their room eating one piece of bread a day and painting at the expense of their health, their friends, and they don't have anything, they're actually living out in the street. But then all of a sudden, they connect with some organization that says, can you paint for us? And then they paint, and then all of a sudden the paintings take off. And they raise a lot of money for cancer or whatever. That's wonderful. And then they do that thereafter, that's wonderful. But when we have a self-gratifying kind of activity, we're stuck on it, and we do it, and it's just for ourselves, and it takes time away from everything and anything that is important within our individual cultures. Not Dharma. I'm not talking about going to the center. Our individual. In Switzerland, they have their own little hang-ups about what's important. In Malaysia, you have your own little hang-ups. In Tibet, we have our own little hang-ups. Everybody has their own mode or thought or perspective or perception of what should be done. And if we don't do that, and I can't label it because it's so different in diverse culture, everything's very important. To the Zulus, it can be, making tattoos on your body and making welts on your skin to be accepted in society. So I can't put them down because that's what's important to those people. But in Tibetan culture, it is to work part-time for the Dharma, to donate your time and energy to the Dharma sincerely, so that your teachers, your gurus, the temple, and the Dharma can spread with less hindrance and less problems. In fact, you don't burden, but you add in taking away its burden. So maybe in Chinese society, maybe it's filial devotion. To take one care as one parents. I mean, you don't go all the way, you don't sit there for the rest of your life and you don't do anything because you're taking care of your parents. I mean, with logic. So everybody has their own kind of cultures. And no one can say one is good or bad. Because why? I'll tell you why. Why can't you say it's good or bad? Because the bottom line is, are we focusing on what is important or ourselves? And that's the bottom line. That's as there's no argument about what is important in different cultures and in our own minds. We don't need to debate whether Paris thinks that what she needs to do is more important for approval or whatever to make herself, for the divinity to come out. Because all these things are just vehicles for the divinity to come out. It's not the actual action. It's not the actual action. Example, in Tibetan society, very important. In Indian society, in ancient society, Japanese, Chinese, these old cultures, a promise or damsik or samaya is extremely important. Your word of honor. Why? It makes you a human or not, makes you honorable or not. So in these kind of cultures that are very successful, that make it, in Tibet, it's Buddhism that's just world famous, it's huge. It's commitment. We say whatever we're committed to the Guru, small or big, we remember to do it. That's very precious. In Japanese culture, you break your promise, you cut your finger off. Simple as that. Why? They don't make you. You have to give something back. You don't say, "Oh, I'm sorry," and pick your ear and forget, and then you just move on for the next 20 years, forgetting everything. You don't have 20 fingers. That's it. I mean, there's retribution. Why? It shows who you are inside. When we lose this honor, when we lose this statement of who we are, it's very bad. Because why? Similarly, you're suppressing your divinity. Why are you suppressing your divinity? It doesn't matter how you feel. It's important how I feel. I don't care about you. That's the unspoken language that's given in every single society when you don't do what you're supposed to do. That's the message you're giving. And that's how come this type of person goes down, 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 down. As the years advance, their reputation, their happiness, what they pursue, what they want, goes down, down, down. Why is that? Because they only go after things that suppress the divine. Buddha nature, God, paradise, heaven. Whatever you want to label it, whatever society, it's all the same thing. Finding the divinity within you. And a lot of us have wasted so much time suppressing that divinity. Suppressing it in our self-inflicted world of pain, loneliness, unhappiness. In our own borders that we make up, in our own barriers that we cannot. And we're just so stuck on just us. What is divine? Divine is all-encompassing. All-encompassing. It's about harmony. It's about making another being feel good. It's about us feeling good as a result of making another being feel happy, relieving them of their suffering. You see, if we write in into the love columns, they have that in America. I'm guilty of that. They have the love columns you write in, and because of that, you get a response, and you get 20, 30, 40 letters, and 40 people wants to have Bugli with you. And you feel happy because of that. That type of happiness doesn't bring you happiness. Do you know why? Because after meeting 10, 20, 30, 40 schmucks, you can say, is that all I'm worth? That's it, until you go down. And then we can spend a lot of time writing letters and newspapers checking, and it's hours just looking. But nothing happens. And that takes away from the divine. Why? Because It is only self-gratification at the expense of everything. So it's not about whether you practice Buddhism deeply. It's not about whether you do meditations and mantra. It's not about that, and I want to go above that. Why is it not about that? Because if you have a sick father and you don't go and take even a peek at them, you're suppressing the divine. If you don't go and serve your sick father, irregardless how you feel, you are suppressing the divine. Why? Because in your culture, that's how you manifest it. So you use that as a vehicle to manifest the divine. Maybe another culture, if you got a sick father, it's better just put him out of his misery. I don't know, maybe there's some sick cultures like that, I'm not sure. Or sick people, not sick cultures, I don't think there's sick cultures. Sick people who think like that within good cultures. Correction. I'll put him out of his misery, ignore him. Maybe I don't want to face the pain. It's about you again. So you don't find the divine. What is the divine? Improvement in yourself. Opening up. More awareness. Being able to relieve other people's suffering. And as the years go by, you see yourself opening, not running away, not hiding, not getting deeper into your own self-gratifications. And everything else is thrown to the wind. Every other thing doesn't matter. Everything, and you just burden people with your words, your explanations, your smiling face. Maybe you don't get pissed off. And it's all very nice, but you see it's a facade. It'll finish. And as time goes, people will recognize your nature, who you are and how you are. And when they recognize who you are and how you are, and you realize they recognize that, then you start to suffer. And when you start to suffer, you can do two things. You can climb out of that suffering and do better, or you can go deeper and hide. Or run away from it, not face it, and hide. If you do the latter, which is run away and hide and escape and not improve, it's a temporary measure, and unfortunately today with email, communication, education, telephones, you can't hide. If you were in a village 2,000 years ago, you hide pretty well. You just run to 20 villages away. Nobody ever find you for the rest of your life. But it's not possible here. We got webcams everywhere. We got nasty people looking at us. We got spies. We got people reporting. We have people who like to gossip. And anyways, people are intelligent and they're educated. They can pretty much look at you and surmise what's going on. No matter what your explanation and words are, because the age-old tradition of actions cloud the words. So, divinity. If you find out you've reached that stage and you do something and you fight it and you go against it and you really fight the time, it's very difficult. It's hard. You want to give up, but it's easier than running. Why? When you run, you escape only from everyone, not yourself. Wherever you go, that will manifest. And your reputation will follow, and your habits will follow, and how you are will follow. There's no way to escape. On top of that, horribly to say, there's karma. The object in which you have done those things to gives you the degree of karma. Very much. So, that is suppressing of the divine within you.